I didn't realize how much of my life I had been quietly carrying for someone else until he said it so calmly. "Let's just stay friends," he said. "I don't want any drama." I didn't argue. I didn't ask what changed. I didn't ask if there was someone else. "All right," I replied. And just like that, I removed one small support he had grown very comfortable leaning on. At the time, it didn't feel dramatic. It didn't feel like a breakup scene from a movie. It felt quiet, almost anticlimactic. Just a sentence, just a decision, just a boundary spoken out loud for the first time. But I didn't yet understand what I had actually taken away. My name is Laura. I'm 38 years old, and until that phone call, I thought I had life mostly figured out. I had been single for 3 years before I met him. After my last relationship ended badly, I didn't jump back into dating. I slowed down. I focused on myself. I rebuilt routines that didn't depend on anyone else. I learned how to be alone without feeling lonely. I liked my life. Then, about 18 months ago, I met Evan at a mutual friend's barbecue. He wasn't flashy. He didn't dominate the room. He was charming in a quiet, effortless way. The kind of man who made conversation feel easy instead of forced. We talked for hours that night, laughed more than I expected to, and exchanged numbers before the evening ended. Texting turned into coffee. Coffee turned into dinners. Dinners turned into weekends spent together doing absolutely nothing and somehow enjoying all of it. For the first few months, it felt good, really good. He called me late at night just to talk. We'd lie on opposite sides of the city, phones pressed to our ears, talking about everything and nothing until one of us fell asleep. He told me I was different from other women he'd dated. More mature, more stable. I heard that word a lot. Stable. But we never put a label on what we were. Every time I brought it up, he'd smile and gently push it away. Why do we need labels? What we have is good. Let's not complicate things. And because I liked him, because I cared, I accepted that. What I didn't see then was the role I was quietly stepping into. I became the person he called when things went wrong. Car trouble? I showed up. Money short for rent? I helped, trusting he'd pay me back. Bad day at work? I listened for hours, offering comfort, advice, reassurance. I became his solution, his safety net, the person who made his life easier. And I didn't mind, because that's what you do for someone you care about. Until the night he decided he didn't want me anymore. Just the benefits of having me around. When he said he wanted to stay friends, I agreed. And that's when everything started to unravel. Because days passed, then silence. And then my phone rang. And his voice wasn't calm anymore. Because he had finally understood what he had been calling friendship. And what he had just lost. Before he ever asked to just stay friends, before I learned how easily support can be mistaken for obligation, there was a long stretch of time where I genuinely believed what we had was meaningful. I was 36 when I met Evan. By then, I wasn't chasing romance the way I used to. My life felt settled in a quiet, earned way. I had a job I was good at, friends who knew me deeply, and routines that grounded me. After my last relationship ended painfully, I'd promised myself I wouldn't lose myself again just to keep someone else comfortable. Evan came into my life without disruption. That was part of his appeal. We met at a mutual friend's backyard barbecue on a warm Saturday afternoon. Nothing dramatic. Paper plates, cheap wine, music playing too loud from a small speaker. Evan stood off to the side, helping the host with the grill, laughing easily when someone teased him. When we started talking, it didn't feel like flirting. It felt like recognition. He asked questions and actually listened to the answers. He didn't rush to impress me. When I mentioned my hobbies, he seemed genuinely interested, not performative. At the end of the night, he asked for my number in a way that felt respectful, almost cautious. The early weeks unfolded naturally. Texts during the day, coffee after work, long walks where conversation flowed without effort. He called me late at night sometimes, not because he needed something, but because he wanted to talk. We'd end up laughing quietly into our phones, sharing small details about our days. For the first few months, I felt chosen. He told me I was different from other women he'd dated, more mature, more stable. At the time, I took it as a compliment. I'd worked hard to become steady. I liked that about myself. But there was always one thing we never clarified. Every time I gently brought up what we were, where this was going, he'd deflect with ease. Why put pressure on it? What we have is good, isn't it? Labels just complicate things. I remember telling myself I didn't need labels either. I was an adult. I wasn't insecure. I could enjoy something without defining it. What I didn't realize was that the lack of definition protected him, not me. As months passed, a pattern formed. Evan reached for me, when life became inconvenient. If his car broke down, I was the first person he called. If rent came up short, I helped, trusting his promise to pay me back. If work overwhelmed him, I listened for hours, reassuring him, absorbing his stress. I became the place he landed when things went wrong. And because I cared about him, I showed up without hesitation. I didn't keep score. I didn't complain. I didn't ask for anything in return. In my mind, this was what connection looked like: being present, being reliable, being kind. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, the balance shifted. Plans with me were flexible. Plans with his friends were fixed. Cancellations came easily, always wrapped in apologies. Promises were made casually and broken just as casually. I noticed, but I excused it. He was going through a lot. He didn't mean it personally. This was just how modern relationships worked. What I couldn't see yet was that I wasn't in a relationship. I was in a role. And the moment he decided he no longer wanted that role to come with expectations, he called it friendship. At the time, I agreed. I just didn't yet understand the cost. The shift didn't announce itself. It crept in quietly, disguised as normalcy. On the surface, nothing about Evan and me had changed. We still talked regularly. We still saw each other. He still leaned on me in the same familiar ways. If someone had asked me then whether anything felt wrong, I probably would have said no, at least not confidently. But something felt off. I started noticing how often our plans were the first thing to be moved when something else came up. A friend's invitation, a last-minute work thing. A vague excuse delivered with that same apologetic tone that made it hard to argue without feeling unreasonable. "I'm so sorry," he'd say. "I didn't plan this. Can we do another day?" And because I didn't want to be difficult, I always said yes. Then there were the nights he didn't cancel, but arrived distracted. Phone buzzing, attention split, conversations that drifted away from anything meaningful. I'd talk, and he'd nod, but his mind was somewhere else. When I stopped mid-sentence once to see if he'd notice, he didn't. I told myself I was reading too much into it. Social media made it harder to ignore. I'd see posts from nights he said he was tired, stories from bars or parties he hadn't mentioned, photos with people I'd never heard him talk about. When I asked casually, careful not to sound accusing, he brushed it off easily. "That was super last minute. You wouldn't have enjoyed it anyway." It wasn't a big deal. Nothing he said was technically wrong. That's what made it confusing. There was always just enough explanation to quiet my instincts. But my body noticed before my mind did. I started feeling tense when my phone rang late at night. Not excited, alert, like I was waiting to be needed rather than wanted. When he texted, I answered quickly out of habit, even when I was busy, even when I didn't feel like talking. I didn't ask myself why. The truth was uncomfortable. I was dependable, I was available, I was useful. And somewhere along the way, that had become the foundation of whatever we were. I remember one night sitting alone on my couch after he'd canceled plans again. I hadn't felt angry, just strangely hollow. I picked up my phone to text him something light, something understanding, something that would keep the peace. Then I stopped. For the first time, I asked myself a question I'd been avoiding for months. If I stopped being the person who fixed things for him, would he still choose me? I didn't like the answer that came to mind. But instead of facing it, I did what I'd been doing all along. I pushed the doubt down. I told myself patience was maturity. I convinced myself that not asking for more was strength. And that's why, when the call finally came, the one where he said he wanted to stay friends, it shouldn't have surprised me. But it did. Because even when the signs are there, we rarely believe someone will actually take advantage of how much we give. Not until they say it out loud. It happened on a Tuesday night. Nothing dramatic, no raised voices, no argument that escalated out of control, just a phone call that rewrote everything I thought I understood. I was at home, curled up on the couch, a documentary playing softly in the background. It had been a long day, and for once I was looking forward to a quiet evening. When my phone rang and I saw Evan's name, I smiled without thinking. That reflex alone should have told me something. "Hey," I said, reaching for the remote to mute the TV. "What's up?" There was a pause on the other end, longer than usual. "Hey," he replied. His voice sounded strained, careful, like he'd been rehearsing. "Can we talk?" he asked. My stomach tightened, just slightly. "Sure, about what?" Another pause. "I think we need to have a conversation about us, about what this is." I sat up straighter on the couch. "Okay," I said slowly. "What about it?" He exhaled. I could almost picture him running a hand through his hair, the way he did when he wanted to sound reasonable. I've been doing a lot of thinking lately, he began, about where my life is going, about what I want. And I think, he stopped, then continued, I think we should stay friends. Just friends. The word landed heavier than I expected. Friends? I repeated. Yeah, he said quickly, like he needed to keep momentum before I interrupted. I mean, you're such an important person in my life. I don't want to lose you. I just think we work better as friends. I don't want any drama or weirdness between us. Can we do that? Can we just be friends? I sat there with the phone pressed to my ear, staring at nothing. Friends. I could have asked why. I could have asked what changed. I could have asked if there was someone else. But I didn't, because somewhere deep down I already knew. I was the stable one, the reliable one, the safety net. I wasn't the woman he wanted to be with. I was the woman he wanted to have around. All right, I said finally. There was a beat of silence, then his voice softened with relief. Really? He asked. You're okay with that? If that's what you want, I replied, then yeah, we can be friends. Oh my God, he said, almost laughing. Thank you. You're so understanding. This is exactly why I knew I could talk to you about this. You always just get it. We talked for a few more minutes. Nothing heavy. He mentioned we could grab coffee later in the week. Said we should keep in touch. I agreed. Said, sure, in the same even tone I'd used all night. Then we hung up. I sat there long after the call ended, the room suddenly too quiet. The documentary had kept playing, but I hadn't heard a single word of it. And then I made a decision. If we were just friends now, then I would be just a friend. Nothing more. No more dropping everything when he called. No more showing up at midnight to fix problems that weren't mine. No more covering rent. No more being the person he leaned on when life got hard. I opened my phone and removed him from my priority contacts. Turned off the special notifications I'd set for his messages. Small things, symbolic things. At the time, it didn't feel like revenge. It didn't feel like punishment. It felt like alignment. I didn't yet know how much he'd been taking for granted. But I was about to find out. The first few days after that call felt strangely normal. Too normal. I went to work. I cooked dinner. I went to bed at the same time. On the surface, nothing had shifted, but underneath I was acutely aware of every small choice I was making, the moments where I would have reached for my phone before and didn't. He texted me 2 days later. Just a meme, something light, something that required no emotional effort. I replied, but not immediately. Not with the enthusiasm I used to bring, just a friendly response. Polite, neutral. He didn't seem to notice. That alone told me more than I wanted to know. A week passed. Then another message. A quick update about something funny that happened at work. I responded hours later, again keeping it simple. No follow-up questions. No opening for a long conversation. Still nothing. The real shift came the following Friday night. It was close to 11 when my phone rang. His name lit up the screen. I was at a friend's place, sitting on a balcony with a drink in my hand, laughing at something completely unrelated to him. For the first time in a long time, I hesitated before answering. I almost didn't, but curiosity won. Hey, I said. Hey, he replied. Where are you? It sounds loud. I'm out with friends, I said honestly. What's up? Oh, nothing really, he said quickly. I just wanted to chat. Are you busy? Yes, I said, kind of. There was a pause. Oh, okay, he said, slower this time. I mean, can I call you tomorrow? Sure, I replied. Tomorrow's better. Another pause, longer now. Yeah, okay, no problem. We hung up. I sat there for a moment, phone in my hand, feeling something unfamiliar settle in my chest. Space. Saturday came and went. I didn't call him back. Sunday morning, I woke up to a text. You forget about me, LOL. I stared at it for a few seconds before replying. Busy weekend, what's up? His response came quickly. Nothing important, just wanted to see how you were. I'm good, I typed. Hope you are too. That was it. Short, friendly, distant. Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang again. This time, I was in the middle of work. Genuinely busy. I let it go to voicemail. He left a message. Hey, it's me. Just calling to catch up. Give me a ring when you can. I didn't. That evening, I sent a text instead. Saw your call, everything okay? Yeah, he replied. All good. Just wanted to talk. Cool. I'll try to call you this week. I didn't. By the end of that week, I felt something solid forming where anxiety used to live. Clarity. I wasn't being cold. I wasn't being cruel. I was simply no longer available on demand. And that's when the tone of his voice started to change. Week 3 was when the balance finally broke. He called me on a Wednesday night. I was home, reading, enjoying the quiet in a way I hadn't realized I'd been missing. I almost didn't answer, but I did, mostly because I wanted to hear it for myself. I wanted to know what happened when the safety net stopped stretching. Finally, he said the moment I picked up. There was an edge in his voice now, not playful, not relaxed. I've been trying to reach you for days. Yeah, I replied evenly. I've been busy. What's going on? There was a brief pause, like he was deciding how to phrase it. I need a favor. There it was. What kind of favor? I asked. My car's making this weird noise, he said. I'm worried it might be serious. I was hoping you could take a look. You're always good with that stuff. I sat back against the couch, feeling an odd sense of calm. Have you taken it to a mechanic? I asked. Well, no, he said. I figured you could check it first. Save me some money. I think a mechanic would be better, I replied. They have the tools and the expertise. Silence. Oh, he said finally. Okay, I just thought, never mind. Is there anything else? I asked. No, he said quickly. I'll figure it out. Good luck with the car, I said. Yeah, thanks. We hung up. I stared at my phone for a moment, then set it down. Normally, I would have already been in my shoes, keys in hand, heading out the door. I would have insisted it was no problem. I would have spent my evening under the hood of his car, refusing payment, telling myself I was just being helpful. But we were friends now. And friends don't drop everything to solve each other's mechanical problems. 2 days later, on Friday night, he called again. This time, I answered immediately. I need to talk to you, he said. His voice sounded strained, tired. What's going on? My landlord raised my rent, he said. By a lot. I'm short this month. I waited. I was wondering if you could help me out, he continued. Just like before, just until my next paycheck. I closed my book. How much are you short? I asked. About $600. That's a lot, I said quietly. I know, he replied. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. I really need help right now. I took a breath. I can't do that. The silence on the other end was heavy. What? He said. I can't lend you money right now. Why not? His voice rose slightly. You've done it before. That was before, I said. Before what? Before we were just friends. There it was again. Silence, followed by disbelief. What does that have to do with anything? He demanded. Friends help each other. They do, I said calmly, but $600 isn't a small favor. You might want to talk to your bank or see if your landlord can work out a payment plan. I can't believe this, he said. I can't believe you're doing this to me. I'm not doing anything to you, I replied. I'm just being honest about what I can and can't do. This is because I didn't want to date you, isn't it? He snapped. You're punishing me. I'm not punishing you, I said. I'm respecting the boundary you set. Wow, he said bitterly. Just wow, I see how it is. I'm sorry you're in a tough spot, I said. I really am, but I can't help with this. He hung up without saying goodbye. I sat there for a moment, phone still in my hand, feeling something settle deep in my chest. This wasn't anger. This wasn't guilt. This was clarity. The moment I stopped giving, he stopped calling me understanding and started calling me unfair. And that told me everything I needed to know. I didn't hear from him for 5 days after that call. No texts, no missed calls, no just checking in. At first, I told myself it was a relief, and part of me meant it. The quiet was cleaner than the tension I'd been carrying for months. I slept better. I focused at work. I went to the gym without checking my phone every 10 minutes. But late at night, when the distractions faded, something heavier settled in. Grief. Not for him exactly, but for the illusion I'd been living in. I replayed the last 18 months in my head, not angrily, but carefully. Every time I'd canceled plans for him, every late-night call I'd answered half asleep, every time I'd reassured him, fixed something, paid for something, smoothed something over. And I asked myself a question I hadn't wanted to face before. If I had never been useful to him, would he have stayed at all? That question hurt more than the breakup ever could, because the answer felt obvious. On the 6th night, I was alone in my apartment, sitting on the edge of my bed, when I finally let myself feel it fully. The loneliness, the humiliation, the quiet anger at myself for confusing being needed with being valued. I hadn't been chosen. I had been convenient. I thought about the way he'd said, let's stay friends, how calm he'd sounded, how reasonable. At the time, I'd believed he wanted to keep me in his life because I mattered. Now I understood the truth. He wanted to keep access. Access to my time, access to my energy, access to my resources. And when I said no, when I removed just one piece of that support, the entire dynamic collapsed. That realization was the lowest point of the story. Not because I missed him, but because I finally saw how long I'd been betraying myself. I sat there in the dim light and felt something crack open inside me, not in a dramatic way, but in a slow, irreversible one. I whispered it out loud, just to make it real. I don't owe anyone my exhaustion. That was the moment I stopped hoping he'd call to apologize and started preparing for what would come next. Because I knew deep down he wasn't done. He wasn't going to disappear quietly. People who lose access don't usually walk away in silence. They come back angry. He called on the 6th day. I was in the middle of the afternoon, sunlight cutting across my kitchen floor, the kind of quiet moment that used to belong to him by default. When I saw his name on the screen, I didn't feel anxious. I didn't feel hopeful. I felt prepared. "Hello," I said. "We need to talk," he replied. His voice was tight, controlled, but underneath it, I could hear irritation, maybe even panic. "Okay," I said, "talk." "Not like this," he insisted. "Not over the phone. Can we meet somewhere?" I checked the time. "When?" "Tonight," he said quickly. "There's a coffee shop near my place. 7." I agreed without hesitation, not because I wanted to fix anything, but because I knew this conversation was coming whether I invited it or not. When I arrived, I ordered my coffee and chose a table near the window. I wanted light. I wanted to see clearly. He walked in a few minutes late, looking tired, frustrated, like someone who had lost control of a situation he thought he understood. He didn't order anything. He sat down across from me and crossed his arms. "So," he said, "are we going to talk about what's really going on?" "I'm not sure what you mean," I replied calmly. "Yes, you do," he said, leaning forward. "Ever since we decided to be friends, you've been distant, cold, like you don't care anymore." I took a sip of my coffee. "I'm being a friend. That's what you asked for." "No," he snapped. "You're being petty. You're punishing me for being honest about my feelings." "I'm not punishing you," I said. "I'm respecting your decision." He laughed, sharp and humorless. "Respecting my decision? You won't answer my calls. You won't help me when I need you. You're acting like I'm a stranger." I looked at him steadily. "What exactly did you think friendship with me would look like?" He blinked. "What?" "Seriously," I said. "What did you think would change when you said you wanted to be just friends? Did you think nothing would?" "Well, I thought we'd still talk, still hang out, still be there for each other." "Be there for each other," I repeated. "What does that mean to you?" He hesitated. "It means being supportive, being available when someone needs you." "And when I needed support?" I asked quietly. "When I needed to know where I stood, when I asked for clarity, when I asked for something more than convenience, where were you?" He opened his mouth, then closed it. "I spent 18 months showing up for you," I continued. "I fixed things. I listened. I helped financially. I rearranged my life to be available, and I did it because I cared about you." "We were building a friendship," he said weakly. "No," I replied. "You were building a support system. There's a difference." He frowned. "That's not fair." "Tell me one thing," I said. "One time in the last 18 months when you inconvenienced yourself for me. One time you showed up when it wasn't easy." He stared at the table, searching. He came up empty. "I was always there for you," I said softly, "but you were only there when it benefited you." His voice cracked. "So that's it? Because I didn't want to date you, you're just done with me?" "I'm not done with you," I replied. "I'm done being your safety net." We sat in silence, the words settling between us. "We're friends now," I added. "Real friends are equals, and equals don't take without giving." He stood up abruptly. "I can't believe you." "I believe you," I said gently. "And that's the difference." He walked out without another word. I stayed and finished my coffee. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something close to peace. The fallout didn't come quietly. It arrived sideways, through other people. 11 days after that coffee shop conversation, I was in the middle of making dinner when my phone buzzed with a message from the mutual friend who had introduced us at that barbecue. "Hey, can you call me when you get a chance? Need to talk to you about something." I already knew. I called him a few minutes later. "What's going on?" I asked. He didn't hesitate. "She's been talking to people about you." My shoulders tensed. "Talking how?" "She's saying you led her on," he said carefully. "That you acted like you wanted more, and then cut her off when she didn't. She's telling people you're vindictive, that you abandoned her when she needed help." I closed my eyes. "Did she mention the money?" I asked. There was a pause. "No." "Did she mention how many times I helped her with rent?" I continued. "Or that she still hasn't paid me back for the last few times?" Another pause, longer this time. "She borrowed money from you?" he asked. "Over $2,000, I said, "across several months. I never pushed for repayment because I cared about her, but now I'm the villain for finally saying no." He exhaled. "She didn't tell anyone that." "Of course she didn't," I said quietly. "She's embarrassed," he admitted. "I think she realized she lost something stable, and she's trying to make it your fault instead of sitting with that." "What do you think?" I asked. "I think she's rewriting the story," he said, "and I think most people can tell." That helped more than I expected. Not because I needed everyone on my side, but because the truth didn't feel fragile anymore. It didn't need defending. Over the next week, I heard variations of the same thing from different people. She was hurt. She was struggling. She felt abandoned. She framed my boundaries as punishment, my absence as cruelty. I didn't correct her. I didn't post anything. I didn't explain myself. I didn't try to reclaim the narrative. Because something had shifted. For the first time, I didn't feel the urge to prove I was a good person. I knew I was. I went on with my life. Work, gym, dinners with friends who reciprocated effort instead of consuming it. Conversations that felt balanced. Laughter that didn't come with exhaustion afterward. And slowly the noise faded. People who mattered saw through it. People who didn't matter. The fallout didn't destroy her life. It didn't need to. It only revealed something she hadn't wanted to see. What happens when someone stops carrying you? And once that's exposed, you can't hide it behind charm or excuses anymore. I wasn't angry. I was done. 4 months have passed since that conversation in the coffee shop. Life didn't transform overnight. There was no dramatic montage where everything suddenly became perfect. What happened instead was quieter and far more meaningful. Peace settled in. Not the kind that comes from winning an argument or being proven right, but the kind that comes from no longer betraying yourself. I woke up without checking my phone for someone else's crisis. I planned weekends without leaving gaps, just in case he needed me. I spent money without worrying whether someone else would come up short. And for the first time in a long time, my energy stayed with me. A few weeks after the fallout started, I ran into him unexpectedly at a bookstore. He looked smaller than I remembered, less certain. We spoke briefly, polite, careful. He told me he'd started therapy, that he'd been forced to look at patterns he didn't like. He apologized. Not defensively, not strategically, genuinely. I accepted the apology, but I didn't reopen the door. When he asked if we could try again as friends, real friends this time, I paused and told him the truth. I don't trust you, I said gently, and friendship without trust isn't friendship, it's habit. He understood, or at least he didn't argue. He did repay the money, slowly, consistently, with a note attached to the final payment that read, "Thank you for teaching me what accountability looks like." That was closure. Not because he changed, but because I no longer needed him to. I heard through mutual friends that he's dating someone new, someone he calls his partner this time. I hope it works out for them. I truly do. Not out of bitterness, but because resentment takes more energy than I'm willing to give. As for me, I'm doing well. Better than well. I started seeing someone new a couple of months ago. Slowly. Intentionally. She listens when I talk. She shows up without being asked. She gives without keeping score. When she offered to help me with something small one evening, I realized something important. I wasn't bracing myself anymore. I wasn't wondering what it would cost me later. And that's when I understood the real lesson in all of this. You can't make someone value you by being more valuable. Some people will take everything you offer and still ask for more. And when you finally stop giving, they'll accuse you of changing, of being cold, selfish, or cruel. But you're not. Setting boundaries isn't punishment. Expecting reciprocity isn't selfish. And walking away from someone who treats you like an option isn't dramatic. It's self-respect. He said he wanted to stay friends to avoid drama. What he really wanted was to keep all the benefits of having me in his life without any of the responsibility of showing up for me in return. When I removed that one small support, my willingness to be used, everything he'd been calling friendship was suddenly exposed for what it was: convenience. Real connection isn't built on convenience. It's built on mutual effort, on showing up even when it's inconvenient, on caring about someone not because of what they can do for you, but because of who they are. For 18 months, I was someone else's solution to every problem. Now I'm just someone living her life with people who actually care about me. And that's exactly where I want to be.